Third chapter, cloud pruning pines. When people talk about Japanese pruning, they're usually talking about Japanese cloud pruning of pines. This is an example of a cloud pruned pine, and they imitate the way some pines look that have been led very stressful lives, usually hanging off a windswept cliff. They also look as if they are very old. Occasionally, they are incorrectly referred to as bonsai, which actually means in a pot. So if it's not in a pot, it's not bonsai, it's cloud pruning. Couple things to notice is that this trunk has good taper. It goes from fat to skinny, smaller and finer twiglets, evenly dividing. The lower branches are wider than the top. It makes kind of a triangle. Notice that the side branches are also foliated pretty much the whole length whenever possible. There's not just a puff at the ends, and that it's very delicate looking. This is a restful picture, but as with all Japanese garden pruning, it is horrifically time consuming. Cloud prune pine such as this could take a day to do, and you would do it twice a year. Some pines take 4 hours, others might take 4 days, depending upon how large they are. Every inch of every plant is worked over individually every year, both with candle pruning, needling, and other general thinning and making look good. Here's another example of the difference between what we would call Japanese cloud pruning and pom-pom pruning, which is not nice and not good. The left is a pom-pom, the right is a Japanese cloud prune pine. Notice that the pom-pom has straight trunks, the head is too big, and there's just like puffs of green on the end. There isn't a nice division to smaller and finer twiglets. Although there are trees in Japanese gardens that have straight trunks, the S shape is preferred, and that is done by planting your Japanese pine at an angle and then heading or topping it to get it to zigzag the other way. Or sometimes bamboo rods are strapped on to try and force it to get into this shape. Sometimes very beat up old pines that have been previously topped are the ones that develop a nice internal structure. If you have a pom-pom and you're trying to make it into more of a cloud prune pine, one of the things you will do is try to make sure that it doesn't have the crossed T effect, which is to say that side branches originate from the convex side of the S, not the inside, but the outside. This is not a cloud prune pine. This is one that was just stripped up by some crazy guy who was experimenting with his landscape. You can't just do this one day and expect it to work. He also cloud pruned or attempted to cloud prune two Styrex japonicas next to the house. Egads. Whoops, and looky there. That Japanese pine just up and died because it took off too much foliage all of a sudden. One of the Styrexes just exploded into sprouts. That's next to the house. And the other one also exploded into sprouts, and it was so ugly and unruly, he just took it out. Eventually, he removed all these trees and had to move in an entire new set of victims. So it's important that when you do Japanese cloud pruning that you do it right from the beginning. You keep up on it every year, and you do it the right way to the right plant. I guess I really shouldn't tell you, but there are a couple of other candidates for cloud pruning. You'll forget them as soon as I tell you, I hope. One would be Enchanthus, and the other would be star magnolias, are sometimes correctly cloud pruned, but only, and this cannot be emphasized enough, in true Japanese gardens. That's not okay in the average garden. It's sort of like having an Eiffel Tower in your backyard. It doesn't really work. And make sure that you do it to the right plant. This is a cloud prune Scotch broom. It died the next year. Oops. And, there's a lot of artistic ability involved. We sometimes pom-pom these poor junipers. Doesn't it look like the other shrubs might be laughing at it? This does not have the intrinsic beauty that a true cloud prune pine has. That would be this one. If I had a pom-pommed juniper, I might employ some of the techniques and aesthetics to try and make it look a little bit better, such as employed by Japanese gardeners. I wouldn't embarrass the homeowner. A lot of these Japanese cloud pruned pines are very tall, and you should know this is a more formal design where we have thicker clouds as opposed to the thinned out clouds. I prefer the informal better. But note that this will need a very tall 3-point ladder. Japanese gardeners get up on top of these 3-point ladders and they spend most of their time at the top working down, needling, candling, and pruning. People tend to overwork the bottom and underwork the top, and you need to prune less on the bottom and also let those branches extend out so that the bottom is wider than the top. This is really hard on your knees. What else? Here's an example of a really nice cloud pruned pine. Notice how that trunk wiggles. Isn't that great? Each one of these clouds, each section has to be worked over. It could take 15 minutes to an hour on each cloud. So let's talk about the various principles. One, that would be a sucker, which you would not get on a pine, but you might get on some other shrub or tree. And those need to be taken off. They are not good. They don't look good. Two, that's a dead stub, and it needs to be removed from your trees and shrubs. They do leave dead wood in true bonsai, but this is not that. This is cloud pruning, and we do want to take off any stubs or dead wood. Three is Mr. Wrongway. He starts on the outside and crosses through the trunk, coming out the other way. Let's see, where's 4? 4 is hanging too far down. We tend to take off the lower branches of the scaffolds. 5. Did you locate 5? Did you find it? It's a little guy that's headed back towards the center, and he's also near a branch crotch or a branch attachment. You want to clean up the places where the branches meet up. You want to peek into that junction a lot of the time, and you do that by cleaning out where the branches meet up. 6, close to it. This is just thinning out this whole cluster. We've got one that crosses into the layer, or, you just want to thin out that section so there isn't as much stuff. 7, that's a parallel branch. Taking it out will also lace things out. 8, also near a branch junction and crosses above between 2 layers. 9. Oh, yeah, 9. Also, it's kind of ruining the perimeter. It's growing between layers. 10, going between layers. 11, in a branch crotch. 12, that's another stub. 13, we want to clean up the trunk. And 14, here again, the lower parts of a branch are often taken off. So there you go. There are the reasons. And these rules can be used on all trees, not just Japanese pine trees. In general, you want a nice triangle for your Japanese pine, Japanese pruned pine. You certainly don't want a head that's bigger than it should be. The head is the top of the tree. And you'll notice in this drawing, they actually topped out the head of the tree in order to restore a shorter. And if you're going to top a tree, which you shouldn't, but if a tree that puts up with it The best would be a pine tree. They're good compartmentalizers and they aren't single leadered. So we are often breaking the rules of pruning to achieve a special effect with pruning art, and cloud pruned pines are in that category. Here again, you don't want the head to be too big or too small, but just right. Candle pruning. Now we're getting into it. Candle pruning happens around here every May. This is what I mean by a candle. On the ends of every branch are some buds that expand and turn into what we call candles. All of this cluster will expand, but the middle one will expand the most and become the trunk, the extension of the trunk of this branch of the pine. And on top of it will be a bunch of needles, just like the rest of the tree. And we want to stop our Japanese pruned pine we want to slow its growth immensely, which we do by candle pruning. And it will also help give it the interesting branch structure that we're looking for. In the spring, as these candles start to elongate, you want to go in and cut or snap out the center one and then take out maybe some of the side ones and cut in half those that remain. Here's a picture of that. You don't want to prune the candle too soon. If you cut the candle out before it has extended, all that growth will go into the side buds and it will gain the same long internode that you're trying to avoid. We want the plant to divide more frequently in the same amount of space. We don't want it to grow long and then divide and grow long and then divide. We want it to grow short and divide, grow short and divide, grow short and divide. And candle pruning is one way we do this. So as they expand, not before, we cut out the main candle, and then you can remove some of the side buds and twist or cut, and they do prefer that you twist the remaining buds so that the space between nodes is reduced and you get that nice puff of cloud look. Let's see. So this is exceedingly time consuming, and you need to work over your pine, every square inch of your pine every year. Sometimes if you miss a year, you can partially redeem yourself by going in August and cutting out the center leader of every branch to the side branches, and that will make it ramify more close in. What else? And in the fall, you're supposed to go in and take off all the old needles of every single branch. That is called needling, and you'll know when to do it because the needles for this year start to turn brown and kind of bug you. While you're in there brushing off the dead needles, you can also take off a couple of years' worth of needles closer to the new growth. And you do that by ripping it off. You just use your fingers, grab hold, and pull. You don't want to do all the needles, but you might want to do a year or 2 years worth of needles. And this will also make it look open and airy. That's what needling is all about. And it's all part of that crazy maintenance schedule that you will see in the Japanese gardens. Notice in the Japanese gardens that you have the low tamamono, the thick shrubs, and then you have open airy shrubs and a few tall things, and that the whole thing is surrounded by a fence or a wall. Once again, I should reiterate that you don't want to do parts of this in a regular landscape, but you will know how to do it if you have inherited a true Japanese garden. I am not an expert Japanese garden pruner. I'm just the person who's doing the slideshow. I learned most of what I know from taking classes and also reading the Journal of Japanese Gardening. And they have a wonderful notebook on Japanese pruning of Japanese gardens. They also keep track of classes given around the country. It has also changed their name, like everybody else has, to Sukiya Living, but you can just type in JOJG and it will come up and you can become a member and get their literature, which I find very, very helpful. And also, if you want to know more, you may want to refer to some other of these PowerPoint presentations. For example, tree pruning should be out soon. The one called Easy Plants to Prune includes Nandina, Yew, and Camellia. And if you get the Vines PowerPoint, it will go over how to prune wisteria, which is also in some of these Japanese gardens. And here's a slide that has absolutely nothing to do with Japanese garden pruning. It is, however, the most important slide in the slideshow. It shows you where a tree's roots really are. Everybody has a picture like the picture on the left of a root system that mirrors the crown, and that is not how tree roots grow. You gotta believe me, it's a fiction. How tree roots grow is very wide and not very deep. Most of the tree's roots are in the top 3 feet, and most of the fine hair roots are in the top 3 inches. What difference does this make? This makes a huge difference when it comes to construction damage. If you're building a patio, driving back and forth, rototilling up your yard, putting in an irrigation system by tunneling, bringing in a new cable to your house, and you slice off the roots, you can easily kill your tree. Once you reach the drip line, it is important to tunnel under the roots, not through them. And I want you to know that our fabulous grantors made this PowerPoint presentation possible. That would be the Washington State Department of Natural Resources Community Forestry Division. You gotta love them. They're wonderful people. And the USDA Forest Service, who is emphatic that I tell you that they are an equal opportunity employer. And I want to thank them so much. And thank you for coming to see us at Plant Amnesty, plantamnesty.org. We are your one-stop shopping for good pruning information. We are a nonprofit organization whose entire mission is to end the senseless torture and mutilation of trees and shrubs caused by malpruning. Please take a look at the website, join if you hate bad pruning, and carry the good word to the world beyond. Thank you.